Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Budapest. Hi Jai Neil, welcome members. This is a members chat class. Everybody is welcome to join. And as usual, this lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS success. Visit us there. And for the general IELTS, check us out at IELTShelp.com. On both of our websites, we have lots and lots of materials to help you improve and pass IELTS. In this class, we are looking at task 1, writing, specifically a bar graph to get a band 9. Hi Abhishek. Hi Moni. Welcome everyone. Okay, I'll just quickly show you our websites. This is our academic IELTS website here with the blue background. You can click that big red button to join our premium package. This is our general IELTS website here with the green background. You can click that big red button to join us there. We are an official British Council IELTS test registration center for Saudi Arabia, and we have British Council certified agents. So if you have questions, let us know. And this is our brand new Instagram account. We actually have 2 of them, one for academic IELTS, one for general IELTS. We're promoting these right now, so you can use the coupon code INSTA25 and you'll get a 25% discount on our websites for the premium package. On our Instagram account, you'll find lots of really cool features and information. You'll find our live class schedules. You'll find some testimonials from students. You'll find practice questions. You will also find daily vocabulary and IELTS videos. So if you are looking for academic, then please follow us on Instagram, IELTS_AEHelp. For general IELTS, follow us on Instagram, GIELTSHelp. Okay? And you'll definitely get some daily information from us and some materials as well. Hi, Sandeep. Hi, Nick Hill. Hi, Devansh. Nice to see all of you joining in. Hi, Carolina. All right, if you have questions, let me know. Adrian at aehelp.com. If you're looking for our apps, download Academic IELTS Help or General IELTS Help from your Google Play or Apple app stores. Right now, task 1, a little bit later, listening section, part 3 and part 4. Right now, let's get into today's task 1, writing. This was sent to us by a student, this question. The actual graph was it's not super sharp, so sorry about that. It was just the way that the graphic looks, but that's okay. It'll be fine. Here we go. So the diagram below shows the number of landline telephones per 1,000 people in different countries in 3 time periods. Write a university lecture describing the information shown below. Now, notice something interesting about this question, members. It doesn't say describe the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Instead, here it says write a university lecture describing the information shown below. I have seen this kind of wording in the past. No need to worry. So with this kind of question, it's the exact same as describe the main features, make comparisons where relevant. Okay, is that clear? So I think this is one of the reasons the students sent it, is because they were wondering, like, okay, is this the same? So this second sentence is the same as describe the main features and make comparisons where relevant. the simple idea here is you're writing an expository essay in third person voice. So simply, you are writing an expository essay in third person voice. That's what you do for a university lecture. Okay, so if I were giving a university lecture about this graph, let me just shrink it a bit, then I would do it the exact same way as writing an expository essay. So I would stand in front of the class and then give an overview, basically explain the dependent, independent variables that we can observe in the graph. Then I would discuss the main features, and then I would get into some specific analysis and give a summary to the class. Okay, it's the same. Is that clear? So we have everybody in here now, or most of our regular members joining in. Is that clear, everyone, that when the question says write a lecture for a university class, it's the same? Okay, so that's what it is. If I said write a report for a business meeting at a telephone company, it's still the same. Okay, so your report for a business meeting at a telephone company would still be the expository essay with overview, critical analysis, and then summary. Okay, that's the logic. That's the task. All right, that's what we do here with this. All right, so Abhishek says, yep. Oh, it says yes. Jainil agrees. Nick Hilmoni are on the same page. Very good. Nice. Okay, so let's do this together. Let's write this essay. We'll go step by step, so we'll get in some good Band 9 practice and do your best. Remember the key strategies and tips that I've given you in past classes and those that you might have seen in the courses at aehelp.com. Of course, for general IELTS, it's different for task 1. Okay, and so here our first step is to write the overview. Okay, and for the overview, we want to first paraphrase the question with some added details. Okay, so overview. First, paraphrase the question with added details. Okay, so the question again is, the diagram below shows the number of landline telephones per 1,000 people in different countries in 3 time periods. Pay attention to this. Pay attention to this, different countries, and the 3 time periods. Go ahead and paraphrase that and use some of the information in the graph. All you need here mostly is this information, okay? And these are this is landline telephones per 1,000 people, okay? So here, obviously, you have the countries. You have Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand, okay? And if you're thinking critically, you might even realize that this is kind of a region of the world. And then here you have the years, 2000 by blue, 2002 with orange, and gray is 2004. So go ahead, write that first sentence, add in the information, okay? Add in some more information, okay? All right, I'm going to do the same, and then we'll compare. And we have Vietnam as well, okay? All right. Okay, that's what I have. Let's see what you've got up there. Ois says the given bar chart. Ois, you're missing a subject there. Careful. The follow, given, illustrate. The given bar chart illustrates 1,000 people who own a home phone in 3 countries. Ois, pay attention to the overall meaning of the sentence so that you don't lose it. Okay, that's dangerous. Ferdov says the bar graph gives information about the number of traditional phones per 1,000 individuals in Southwest Asia, in Southwest Asian nations in 3 periods of time. And then you might as well give the periods of time to your audience. I would emphasize that. So for Dobbs, again, think if I'm giving a presentation or a lecture to a university class, I would voice, even though they can see it, I would still voice. It's 2002, 2004, 2006, 2-year intervals, okay? Abhishek says the bar graph compares the count of wired telephones per 1,000 individuals in 9 different countries in 2000, 2002, and 2004. Very good. Nick Hill says the given bar chart illustrates the information about the quantity of landline telephones from per 1,000 people in 9 different nations in the year 2000, 2002, and 2004. Good. Okay, this is what I wrote. The bar chart illustrates the number of landline telephones per 1,000 people in 9 different Southeast Asian countries in 3 time periods, 2002, 2004, and 2006. Okay. All right. Janelle says the column graph depicts the total number of wired telephones per 1,000 people from 0 to 450 in 9 different countries in 3 years with 2-year intervals from 2000 to 2004. Very nice, Janelle. Don't forget your 0 on 2000. Okay, 2000 to 2004. Devansh, the bar chart acknowledges us. I take the us out, Devansh. Take us and we out, okay? So about 1,000 people's residential numbers in 3 different countries in the year 2000, in the years, Devansh, it's a plural, years, 2000, 2002, and 2004. Ali says the following figure exhibits the landline telephone numbers per 1,000 individuals in several South Asian countries during 2000, 2002, and 2004. Ali, good. Be specific with the type of graph. The following bar graph. Say bar graph, okay, or column graph is okay as well. All right, good. So now we're looking at the main feature. So let's take a look at that. I'm just going to grab all of this here and let's move it below the graph. Okay. All right. So again, the bar chart illustrates the number of landline telephones per 1,000 people. I liked, if you want to paraphrase landline, I really like what Ferdovs wrote. He wrote traditional telephones per 1,000 people in 9 different Southeast Asian countries in 3 time periods. And you could do with intervals of 2 years from 2000 to 2006. Or 2004, sorry. Yeah, that's an information mistake. Got to be careful about that. Okay, so there we go. All right, so melting together a little bit of what all of you wrote. Okay, now let's take a look at the main feature. So what's the most observable feature here? So here we have the trends in telephone ownership from 1,000. Okay, and let me just kind of, well, we don't really need to see the top of that. So here we have the countries. Okay. What's the most observable feature? So here we have Brunei, we have Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam. So what do we notice right away? Okay. What's the main feature? All right. Give me, yeah, wired is okay, Janelle. I think it's saying wired phone lines is okay. Yeah, that'll work. Wired phone is fine, Janelle. Yeah. Okay, so what do you notice the most? What would be the most observable feature? I think there's something very clear that pops out. So fortunately, this graph is not too difficult as far as the actual statistics or data that's in there. Yeah, very good. So Ferdov says, well, people from Brunei and from Singapore, landlines are used much more. What's a good way to say much more used? Think about the word starting with a P. OS, I wouldn't just go with Singapore because I think Brunei is also very interesting. Both Singapore and Brunei jump out. Sure, Singapore jumps out for sure, but for me, definitely Brunei also jumps out. So, so I would go with naming both of these as the main feature. Okay, and then the rest of them we can get into more details after. All right. Abhishek says majority. No, that's not the word that comes to my mind. The word that comes to my mind starts with a P. So if I'm thinking about this table, then I can see that landlines are among these 9 countries in Singapore and Brunei are much more, what's the word? Not plunge, not predominance. It's simpler than that. Okay? You're looking for just some nice qualitative language here. What are the missing letters? You'll get it now, I'm sure. Okay? So in these 2 countries, landlines are much more popular. That's right. Okay? So keep your thoughts simple, right? Popular. Right? There's way more people out of 1,000 that have landlines in these 2 countries than any of the others. Okay? So popular is the right word. Okay, so give me the sentence for the overview. Okay? Now, if I wanted to go for that band 9, I would go with these for a second. Okay? And then these for the third. All right? So let's do it. Let's go for a band 9. So Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, they're slightly common. And then for the rest of them, they're much less common. Okay. So we have 2 where they're quite popular. We have 3 where they're slightly common. And we have 4 where they're quite rare out of 100 people. Okay. All right, so let's do that. Let's name that main feature. I'm going to write it, you write it, and then we'll compare. So okay, I'll get you back in a second here. There's a little refreshing, smiling baby for you to break the intensity of analysis. All right. So I'll give you a moment to think and write. Okay. So Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. All right. So there is my introduction slash overview. And again, this is going for that band 9, okay? So far, if I'm giving a university lecture to a class on the use of landlines, this is how I would start my lecture. I would show the students the bar graph, and then I would say this bar chart illustrates the number of landline telephones per 1,000 people in 9 different Southeast Asian countries in 3 time periods with intervals of 2 years from 2000 to 2004. Immediately, it is clear that the wired telephones are much more popular in Brunei and Singapore than the other 7 countries. This type of phone is somewhat common in the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam, and relatively rare in the remaining 4 nations. Okay, so that is my overview introduction. Abhishek says, at first glance, it is evident that Brunei and Singapore uses traditional phones, or are citizens of Brunei and Singapore use traditional phones much more than other countries. Use more than other is more popular, Abhishek. So learn how to use the word popular accurately, Abhishek, okay? All right, Ferdov says, overall, it is obvious that using traditional phones in Brunei and Singapore is much more popular than the other nations. Also, line phones are the least popular in Laos and Myanmar. Yeah, Ferdovs, I wouldn't even say the least in this case. I think looking at Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam is more significant. So when we talk about the main features, I think this is a little bit more significant. These ones here, if I run out of time, I'm really not worried about getting into too much details here. If I'm a telephone company, then if I have this information, that's more valuable than this information. Yeah, we could argue that maybe for mobile phones, it's kind of but we don't know the information about mobile phones. We can't assume that information based on this graph. We can only assume that phone lines are this way, okay? All right, Devansh says, by observing the clear outliers, not outliners, Devansh, it's outliers, okay? Outliers, not outliners, okay? Outliers, they lie on the outside. Outliers, not outliners, okay? So our countries, Brunei and Singapore respectively, also many countries have adopted using these types of lines, like Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. Devansh, that last piece is a little bit awkward. I think it's inaccurate information. Nikhil says, at first glance, it's evident that in Singapore and Brunei, wired telephones are more popular than elsewhere. Nikhil, elsewhere. One word. Okay, not other, but elsewhere. Also, Nikhil, no commas. Okay, no comma after that, and no comma after Brunei. Just keep writing. Okay, there's no breaks there. All right. Ali says, generally, wired telephones are much more popular in Singapore and Brunei compared with the other countries shown. More natural to put the verb in that passive, Ali, at the end of the sentence. Other countries, such as Philippines, not at other countries, just other countries, such as Philippines, Vietnam, and Thailand, use landlines moderately while, okay, so Ali, careful with your grammar, right? Okay, let's take a look at the information. So when you have an overview like this, where basically in the overview, I explain qualitatively for this kind of graph, that it's more popular in Brunei and Singapore, so that's my qualitative analysis. Then in my analysis, so in the body paragraphs, all I need to do is basically do a quantitative description, okay? So here, I have my analyses, okay? So here for my analyses, what I want to do is take the main feature which is qualitative, okay, like more popular and so on, and describe it quantitatively. Okay, and we're going to do that right now. So first, we want to start with Singapore. Okay, all right. So here we have Singapore with these very nice, large, long bars. And we want to now define that quantitatively. So quantitatively, it's 450, okay, in 2000 and 2002, and slightly less at 420. It's almost irrelevant, okay? These are slight decreases. We can mention that. How should I describe this? Okay, so I'm going to challenge your thinking in your English here a little bit, students. So how would you describe the use of landlines in Singapore based on these bar graphs? What would you say to that university class that you're giving this lecture to? Let's see who comes up with the best interpretation, because your goal when you're writing a Band 9 Task 1 is to have really good interpretation of the data, okay? So how would you interpret that? Okay, think. So writing 450, that's not the best. Okay, there's better ways. So let me explain this to you a little bit like this. Okay, so here I could write in Singapore. So I could say, looking at the data in greater detail, in Singapore, 450 out of 1,000 people have a landline in 2000 and slightly less in the following years. Okay, so I could do it like that. Okay, this would be like a band 7.5. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to show you what a band 9 will be. All right. So that's a band 7.5. Let's see what a band 9 looks like, okay? That's a band 7.5 interpretation. And hey, you know, if you're going for that 7.5, that's fine. If you're going for a band 9, and of course this will also be reflected in your university marks once you get into university, then you're going to have to be a little bit more creative with your interpretation. And what should it be? Okay, I'm still waiting for that. So 450 from 1,000 is nearly what? Okay, let me show you. Let's see if you've come up with this. Okay, so looking at the data in greater detail, in Singapore, nearly, what am I going to continue with? Not 45%, Rajveer. A little bit better than that. Nearly one of every 2 people own a landline, right? 450 is almost half of 1,000. So looking at the data in greater detail, in Singapore, nearly 1 of every 2 people own a landline at the turn of the millennium. With a slight decrease in each Okay. So this would be your band 9. Okay. Why is it a band 9 here compared to the previous? So why is it 1.5 band higher? Because it's greater interpretation, it's greater use of grammar and lexical resource. So this is your 7.5, looking at the data in greater detail. In Singapore, 450 out of 1,000 people have a landline in 2000 and slightly less in the following years. Here's your band 9, looking at the data in greater detail. In Singapore, nearly 1 of every 2 people own a landline at the turn of the millennium, with a slight decrease at each consecutive 2 years. Okay? Do you see the difference in the level of writing in English, and not only level of English, but also the level of interpretation and thinking? Do you see the difference between these two? So this would be somebody who has a solid level of English at the grade 12 level. This would be somebody who has a solid level of English at the first year or second year university level. Okay? So Ferdov says, yes, I see the difference. Okay, good. So you're always aiming for that level of interpretation. Okay? All right? If I'm giving a university lecture, hopefully I'm using this instead of this. All right, now you will do a much better job, I'm sure, with the next piece of information, which is Brunei. Okay, so here we have Brunei. Here you have the numbers for Brunei. Again, use the interpretation. So now that I've given you kind of a way to think about it with Singapore, Brunei. Now, here's the challenging part. Instead of just saying a quarter, I'm sure many of you will come up with 1 out of every 4 or a quarter of 1,000 people. You'll come up with that. Instead of just doing that, make a comparison between these, or a contrast. Okay, so Singapore was the most popular. We started with that. Brunei is the second most popular. Write a nice sentence that not only describes the popularity of landlines in Brunei, but also contrasts or compares that popularity to the popularity of landlines in Singapore. Again, you're talking to a university class. Yeah, Abhishek, very good. So Abhishek says it's basically the half of Singapore. Okay, so you can say half as popular, right, Abhishek? Okay, good, very good, Abhishek. Now you want to write that down, okay? I'm going to write it down and then we'll compare. So, all right. If I want to just give it that extra little cherry on the top, okay? So traditional telephones are roughly half as popular in Brunei as Singapore, with about 1 of 4 people having this service. Again, there is a slight decrease in this number from 2002 to 2004, similar to Singapore, okay? It's almost a negligible amount. It's not enough to show significance, I think. But that's about it, okay? So Ferdov says, however, in Brunei, traditional phones are half, not twice less popular for doves, but half as popular. So twice as much, half as many. Okay, twice as much, half as many. Half, half. Devansh, almost common in nature in both countries with half the magnitude. Okay, Devansh, half the magnitude, HALF, half the magnitude. Common in nature is awkward, Devansh. You would not have that as natural English. It could get confusing in a university lecture. So good try, Devansh, but does not work. So careful with your word choice. Okay. All right. So that is Brunei. And now we have Philippines, we have Thailand, and we have Vietnam. And in these countries, we see different trends. Okay. So in the Philippines, it seems that bi-yearly means every 2 years. So bi-yearly, the popularity of landlines is diminishing, okay? But it's significantly less. It's under 100 people, so it's under 10% of the population, okay? Now, here for Philippines and Thailand, we can see that it's between 5 to 10%, okay? Because it's of 1,000 people. So it's somewhere between 5 and 10%. And for Thailand, we either have no data for 2004 or it's so insignificant that we don't see the usage, just like in Laos. Okay, so here it's an absence of data, so we don't want to report none. We just want to say that there's an absence of data. All right, I'm going to talk about Philippines and Thailand first and then kind of keep Vietnam separate. Maybe compare Vietnam with Cambodia, because they show similar trends. Okay? All right. So Philippines, Thailand first. Okay? Here we go. Yeah, for doves, if you're referring to the graph, use the present tense. If you're referring to the time in the graph, which is usually better, then use the past tense. Okay? I'm not sure who was asking that, but here you'd be using the past tense because obviously these years are clearly in the past. And if you're referring to the graph in the general sense, then you would use the present general sense. Okay? So we're looking at Philippines and Thailand. Okay? Okay. So Here we go. Thai people use landlines between 5 and 10% of the population in 2000 and 2004. However, there's an inverse trend. Take notice of this vocabulary, inverse trend. In the Philippines, in the use of wired phones, which decrease at each interval, as where in Thailand it increases, but with the absence of data for 2004. However, there's an inverse trend. In the Philippines, the use of wired phones decreases at each interval, as where in Thailand it increases, but with the absence of data for 2004. Okay. Ferdov says about 1/10 of people have this. Instead of amenity, Ferdovs, I would write a word that starts with a U. So amenity is okay, but there's a better word that starts with a U. What is that word? That's how many letters it is. The last letter is a Y. Actually, one more, I believe. Yeah. So what's the word that look at it. Before I even finished my heebie-jeebie up here on the board, you all got it. It's utility, yeah. Landlines are a type of utility. Yeah, your phone lines, utility. So very good. Amenity is not bad for dogs, but utility is better, I think. Okay, it's more accurate, right? Very good. Yeah, electricity, telephone, heating, those are your utilities and your utility bills, okay? All right, so I'm moving along nicely now. There's quite a bit of data here. Let's see what kind of a word count I'm at right now. So, okay, let me just, here we go. That's 123 plus 72. So I'm at 190 words at this point, okay? So at this point, I've written 190 words, and I might be running out of time. I might only have a couple minutes left, okay? Now remember that Band 9 essays are closer to 200 words. It's minimum. The task says minimum 150 words. If you're doing TOEFL, it's minimum 200 words for task 1. So be careful. I'm at about 190, so I want to kind of wrap this up, okay? And I still have Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Myanmar, so I still have, and Vietnam as well. And so if I'm really in a rush here, I can still get a Band 9. All I would do is something like this. Let me show you, okay? So I wouldn't waste too much time here. I definitely wouldn't take time away. So let's wrap it up. I wouldn't take time away from task 2. That's a bad idea. Okay. So in the remaining 5 countries, the use of this utility is 5% or less of the population, which is a negligible amount. Okay, so you can imagine that a telephone company probably wouldn't be too interested in going and setting up shop in a country where 5% of the population is using landlines. Yeah, Jainil, exactly. So all I'm mentioning here is 5%. So in summary, there is a broad range of the popularity of landlines among these 9 nations. And there are clear differences of either increase or decrease from one country to another. Okay, that would be my summary. So what I've learned by looking at this graph is in some countries Every 2 years it goes down a bit. Some countries it goes up a bit, okay? Up a bit, down a bit, up a bit, up a bit, down a bit, okay? So clearly that's a different trend, and I'm reporting that in my summary, that we have some countries that increase slightly, some countries that decrease slightly, and we have some countries where a lot of people use landlines and some countries where a lot of people don't use landlines. That's what's most obvious. And then I end up with my Band 9 essay, okay? So here we go from the top, and this is about 210 words at this point, 215. This is about a Band 9 essay that describes all of the main features, okay? And Ois, I see that you've written a summary. Ois says, the given periods experience a wide gap of people's numbers as they use home phones between Singapore and Brunei and the rest of the other countries. Not bad, Ois. Just watch your grammar and your punctuation. Okay, here we go from the top, everyone. So the bar chart illustrates the number of landline telephones per 1,000 people in 9 different Southeast Asian countries in 3 time periods with intervals of 2 years from 2000 to 2004. Immediately, it is clear that wired telephones are much more popular in Brunei and Singapore than the other 7 countries. This type of phone is somewhat common in the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam, and relatively rare in the remaining 4 nations. Looking at the data in greater detail, in Singapore, nearly 1 of every 2 people own a landline at the turn of the millennium, with a slight decrease at each consecutive 2 years. Traditional telephones are roughly half as popular in Brunei as Singapore, with about 1 of 4 people having this service. Again, there is a slight decrease in this number from 2002 to 2004, similar to Singapore. Both the Filipino and Thai people use landlines between 5 and 10% of the population in 2000 and 2004. However, there's an inverse trend in the Philippines. The use of wired telephones decreases at each interval, as we're in Thailand it increases, but with the absence of data for 2004. In the remaining 5 countries, the use of this utility is 5% or less of the population, which is a negligible amount, or you could say which is insignificant. In summary, there is a broad range of the popularity of landlines among these 9 nations, and there are clear differences of either increase or decrease from one country to another in the given years. Okay, so that is your Band 9 essay at roughly 200 to 210 words. Okay, so about 30% over the minimum. Okay, minimum is what you need for task completion, but that's not necessarily enough. And in this case, it's arguably not. All right, everyone, great job. So keep in mind that your task to get a Band 9 is always more than just reporting data, okay? Any person can look at a bar graph and see the numbers that are written there. Your job is to interpret data and report it in a clear, coherent way. To learn how to do this and to improve your writing, check us out at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. We have lots and lots of materials to help you improve your thinking, your communication, your English skills, and get those high band scores. You're very welcome. Abhishek Jainil for Dobbs. Hang around, everyone. Coming up in 40 minutes, listening, part 3 and 4, continuation from yesterday. It was nice to have you chime in as well, Rajveer. Hang around, students. I'll be back shortly. That's it for now. See you in half an hour. Bye.